This next lesson is on decimal fractions. So students will represent decimal fractions in expanded form. So let's just begin with a warm-up exercise. You're going to find the number that makes the fractions equivalent on your whiteboard. So let's do A together. So we have 21 over 14. What was the equivalent fraction? So again, we're just like the last lesson, we need to divide. We're working backwards. So 21 divided by what is going to give us 3. We know that 21 divided by 7 is going to equal 3, so 14 divided by 7 then is going to equal 2. So we can say that 21/14 is equivalent to 3 halves. I want you to do B, C, and D on your whiteboards, and then you're going to resume your screencast and start your lesson. So let's think back to a few units ago where we were talking about multiplying by tens. So we know that if we have 10, it's equal to or equivalent to just 10. Now if I have 10 times 10, well, we're doing the zero trick. So how many zeros do I have? I have 2. So 10 times 10 is going to be 100. Now I have 1, 2, 3. 10 times 10 times 10. I know my answer is going to have 3 zeros in it, so it's 1,000. Now I have 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. So I know my answer has to have 4 zeros. So that is equal to 10,000. These numbers are called powers of 10 because they all work with zeros and multiplying by tens really easily. So if you can remember these rules by counting your zeros, this lesson is going to be really easy for you. So let's multiply here. So if I have 10 times 1,000, I know that this is going to equal, I have 1, and then I have 2 zeros here, so my answer is going to have 3 zeros in it. So 10 times 100 is going to equal 1,000. I want you to do B, C, and D on your whiteboards, and then you're going to resume your screencast. So I'm going to teach you a trick on these exercises here. So 10 times what is equal to 1,000? Well, if you're struggling coming up with what this number is, you're going to count your zeros. So you have 1 0 here, you have this 0, and then you have 3 zeros in your answer. So how many zeros do you need here to get to 3? Well, if you have 1 0 already, you need 2 more zeros. So you know that 10 times 100 is going to give you 1,000 because now you have 3 zeros in your question. So for B, you have 2 zeros here. Your answer has 3 zeros, so you only need 1 more zero. So 100 times 10 is going to give you 1,000. For C, you have 1 0 in your question, 2 in your answer. So you need 1 more zero. So 10 times 10 is going to give you 100. I want you to do the bonus ones on your whiteboard, and then you're going to continue on with your screencast. So we're going to look at these tables here. We have a table, one side is decimal fractions, 5 tenths, 3 hundredths, 425 thousandths, or 4 tenths. And then on this side of the table, we have not decimal fractions. So 1/2, 9 over 20, 4 over 17, 2 over 5, 289, 3 thousandths. So these ones are really, really tricky to put into decimals because they're not really nice numbers like the decimal fractions are on this side. So a decimal fraction is a fraction whose denominator is a power of 10. So decimal fractions are important because powers of 10 are easy to work with. So while some of the denominators in the not decimal fractions group are multiples of 10, they are not powers of 10. So what this means is that some fractions such as 1/2 and 2/5, they're equivalent to decimal fractions, but they're not decimal fractions because they're not powers of 10, meaning they don't have a denominator of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, etc. So we're going to review equivalent fractions in tenths and hundredths that our last lesson was on. So this picture here is showing you why 3 tenths, which is in this block here, is equal to 30 hundredths. So the second square has 10 times as many shaded parts and 10 times as many parts altogether. So we can say that 3 tenths is equal to 30 hundredths because all we did was we multiplied the denominator by 10 and we multiplied the numerator by 10 to give us 30 hundredths. So these two are equivalent fractions. Now I want you to write an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 100. And you're going to show your work. So for A, I've got it started here for you. So you have 7/10. Well, how do you make 10 into 100? You need to multiply by 10. So if you're multiplying the denominator by 10, you have to multiply the numerator by 10. So 7 times 10 is going to equal 70. So we can say then that 7/10 is equal to or equivalent to 70 hundredths. I want you to do B and C on your whiteboard, and then you're going to continue on with your screencast. So what should you multiply the numerator by to get an equivalent fraction? Well, you have to decide what the denominator was multiplied by, and then you multiply the numerator by the same thing. So how did I get from 10 to 100? Well, I have 1 0 here, I have 2 here, so I need to multiply by 10. So if I multiply the denominator by 10, that means I need to multiply the numerator by 10. Remember, this is the same as saying 3 times 1, which is 3, and then just add your 0 on the end. So 3/10 is equal to or equivalent to 30 hundredths. Now, if I have 7 over 10 equal to equivalent of thousandths, how do I get from 10 to 1,000? Well, I need to multiply the denominator by 100 because I need a total of 3 zeros. So if I multiply the denominator by 100, I need to multiply the numerator by 100. So 7 times 100 is equal to 700. So we would say that 7/10 is equal to or equivalent to 700 thousandths. And same here. So we have 10 going to 1,000, so I need to multiply by 100. If I'm multiplying the denominator by 100, I'm multiplying the numerator by 100. So 5 times 100 equals 500 over 1,000. Now I want you to try this exercise on your whiteboard. You're going to write the missing numerator in the equivalent fraction. So give this a try, and then you're going to continue on with your screencast. So how do we add tenths and hundredths? Well, if we look at these pictures here, if you can add hundredths, and if you can change tenths to hundredths, then you can add tenths and hundredths together. So for example, 3/10 is the same as saying 30 hundredths, and 6 more hundredths here is equal to 36 hundredths. So we can change the tenths to hundredths without also using a picture, just by multiplying by 10. So if I have 3/10, I need to multiply it by 10. So this here is going to change to 31 hundredths. It makes it a lot easier if all your denominators are in the same power of 10. So if I have 30 hundredths plus 6 hundredths, it's going to equal 36 hundredths. Notice that now all our denominators are the exact same. So let's work on A together. I have 4/10 plus 3 hundredths. Well, this is hard to do without the same denominator. So my first step is going to be changing the denominators. I'm going to multiply by 10 to get 100 on the bottom. You want to remember to always change to the largest power of 10 that you have. So this is going to change to 40 over 100 plus 3 100ths. So this is equal to 43 hundredths. I want you to try B and C on your whiteboard, and then give the bonus a try. But take note of the order that your denominators are in, because you need to always start lowest to greatest. When you're done trying B, C, and the bonus, you're going to resume your screencast. So to make fractions easier to add, remember we need to change all the denominators to the largest power of 10. So in the question we're given here, we have 3/10 plus 9 hundredths plus 6 thousandths. We need to change all the denominators to thousandths because it's the largest power of 10. So in order to do that, I need to first multiply this one by 100 to get to 1,000. If I multiply the denominator by 100, I need to multiply the numerator by 100. So I'm going to have 300 thousandths plus, I need to multiply this one by 10. So if I multiply the denominator, multiply the numerator, so 9 times 10 is going to give me 90. And then this stays the same because it's already in thousands. So I have 300 plus 90 plus 6. So this is the same as saying it's equal to 396. 396 over 1,000. So adding fractions with denominators of 10, 100, and 1,000 is easy, because it's just using essentially expanded form. We did this step way back at the beginning of the year when we did place value. Now we're just adding the fractions, and we know from the previous unit that when we're adding fractions with common denominators, the denominator always just stays the same. So all we're doing is adding across the top using expanded form. Now I want you to give A, B, and C a try on your whiteboards. Remember, you always need to change the fractions to the largest power of 10 before you can add across. There's also a bonus here that you can try. When you're done, you're going to resume your screencast. So here we have the equation of 4/10 plus 9 thousandths. Now, how many thousandths are in 4/10? Well, we need to multiply the 10 by 100. So when I multiply the 10 by 100, I need to multiply the 4 by 100. So what this is going to give me is 4/10 plus 0 hundredths plus 9 thousandths. So this is going to equal, when I add this up, it's going to equal 400 over 1,000 plus 9 thousandths. So when I write this, I have 400, 0/10, or 4/10, sorry, 0 hundredths, 9 thousandths. So it's 409 thousandths as my answer, just as it is written below here. Now I want you to give these ones a try on your whiteboard. When you're done, you're going to resume your screencast. Now we're going to repeat the process with 4 hundredths plus 9 thousandths. So when I write this out, I have 0/10, I have 4 hundredths, I have 9 thousandths, which is going to equal 49 thousandths. We don't write this as 049 over 1,000. That's not the proper way to write it. We take the 0 off at the beginning of the number. We never include the 0, so we write it as 49 thousandths just as it is over here, or we could write it as 49 over 1,000 if you wanted it in fraction notation. Now I want you to add the decimal fractions and write the answer as a decimal fraction. So remember, you need to change these all to the largest power of 10 first before you can add. When you're done, you're going to resume your screencast. Now before you begin your assignment today, we're going to look at these two bonus questions together to ensure that we're all on the same page. When you look at these bonus questions, you'll notice that the denominators are not from the lowest power of 10 to the greatest, like the questions you've been working on. So we're first going to do that. We're going to reorder these numbers. So I notice that my largest power of 10 is 1,000. So I'm changing all of these to 1,000. So I'm going to multiply this by 100, and I'm going to multiply this by 10. So I'm first going to put the 2 over 10 here. So I have 200 over 1,000 plus 6, I need to multiply by 10, so 60 over 1,000, and then 8 over 1,000. So this is going to equal 268,000. So it's going to be over 1,000. Okay, I want you to give H a try on your whiteboard, and then you're good to start your activity for today. So your activity is in your brand new Jump 6.2 workbook, pages 4 to 6. When you are done that assignment, you're going to check in with myself, and then you're going to give the few extension questions a try that you have on your dashboard.